Okay, so we're going to be using Autocad to create Autocad is locked up. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is set this back to where it was before, so I don't have a problem with my CAD. So one of the things I had to do, I think, was to start up to 1 or something. So I'm going to change the startup back to 3 where it was. Okay. Okay. I'm just in a new file here. So you should have read chapter 1 already. This is very similar to example 3 that you had to do for your first lab 2. We're going to make a template. We're going to call it AutoCAD for DWT. So let's go ahead and just save it as that right off the bat in your CAD 58 or your CAD systems folder on your U drive. Make sure it's on your U drive because everything on a server will disappear when you're done. So we go to File, and I'm going to hit Save As. Okay. And where it says DWG down here, I'm going to switch it over to DWT. I'm going to type. It says AutoCAD 2004. Drop that down and find the one right in the middle that says AutoCAD drawing template. Just pick that. Okay. And then the name, give it the name that's shown there in blue. So just all caps, ARC dash A4. So this is a A size drawing evidently, and it'll be a DWT by itself. Okay. All right. And make sure it's saved to your U drive. By default, it's going to try to save to the standard template, which is fine if it's your own computer, but it'd be hard to find to upload for a grade. So save it to your U drive or save it to wherever your standard folder is on your laptop that you've been using, My Documents or whatever. That's fine if you're using a laptop. So I'm on the server, so I'm going to go over to my folder I created and save it in there. Okay. Architectural 4, saving as a template, save. So if you put a description in here, I don't think I said put anything. You can put in here if you want to. You don't have to. A size, right? Template, I guess. Short description, and then hit OK. All right, so it's created there. Everybody good? If you guys get stuck, raise your hand, okay? I don't want to get ahead of anybody. All right, so make sure you raise your hand if you get stuck so I don't lose you in the beginning or be lost along the way. So everybody's good? All right. All right, so we've got that. A size. Scale the paper to 1 to 48. Okay, so we're going to use MV Setup to do that. So the drawing limits are, so this is how big it'll print. All right, that way a lot of times when you're designing, you're going to have a border, and then you'll see a lot of drafters, they'll get sketches and ideas together outside the border, and the customer never sees those because they never print. Okay, so that's why you set up limits, because when you print the limits, so if you go like plot, for example, okay, one of the options in here is instead of display is limits, okay, and that's used a lot in AutoCAD because then it just prints out what your border is, and that's what we're setting up here. Okay, all right. It says it's 48 scale and it's 10 inches wide and 8 inches long. So we're going to use the MV Setup shortcut. It's a lot easier to use that than the other way you do it is you type in limits in the command line, and then you get your calculator out and you 48 times the actual border, not the paper, because the paper is actually 11 inches wide and 8.5 inches tall, but the border size, which is 10.5 by 8. But we're going to use MV Setup because it's a whole lot easier, and it's there, so we're going to use it. MV, so Michael Victor, and then just setup, and then enter. Okay. And when this is the one to always remember, so when it says paper space, say no, because we're not setting it up in paper space. Most of the time we're doing 2D stuff, you just do it in the model. Okay. Now if you're doing 2D and 3D, you would actually you'd say yes there, and you'd set it up in the layout, basically, which is paper space. Okay. So pick no. And then this is an architectural drawing we're going to do. I'm pretty positive. Yeah, it says use architectural. So pick the architectural button there. You can also type A down here if you wanted to, or pick it down here in the command line. It all does the same thing. Okay. And it says what is the scale factor. We said that was 48, so just type 48 there and hit enter. And how wide is the paper? 10.5. Okay. How high is the paper? It was 8. So this is going to give us a quarter inch border all the way around the paper, because the paper is actually 11 by 8.5. Okay. Okay. Now what that did was it took an 8.5 by, or I guess 10.5 by 8-inch tall rectangle. Started out at the 0, 0, and it scaled it up 48 times. So we have basically can draw the size of the house. Okay, and it also set our units to architectural, so we type in everything in feet and inches. Okay, and this is the same thing as hitting F2. So this is basically an expanded command line. So you can close that, and F2 would bring it back up. It's exactly the same thing as down here, except it's expanded command line. All right, so we've got the first one done. Okay, so now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to make our layers. Okay, so we got to make these layers: walls, dimensions, hatch, hide or hid, and then border. Okay, and so these are the names of it. So you're going to create those names. You're going to make them this color, and you're going to use this line type for all of them. Okay, and these are your line weights. As you notice, the line weight for the hatch and the hidden line are really skinny, 0.04 of an inch. So they won't show up very bright, and that's what you want. And the border is really dark. It's 14 thousandths, which will be a pretty dark border. Okay, and the dimension's pretty light too. All right, so to do that, just go over to your layer group here. Mine's all shrunk down, but yours should look like that. And pick layer properties. Okay, now you're in that properties window. So just do one at a time, and it'll remember what you did the last time. So you just have to change a few things. Okay, so first one, just right click and pick new. Make sure you're under the name column. Okay. Make sure, and then these are all basically the different items we're going to set. And notice the other ones. We're only setting some of them, but there's also, you can make them transparent, you can make them not print, you can lock them, you can hide them. Okay, so new layer. First one's just walls. Just go ahead and type them all in. I usually recommend using all caps. Then we're going to go over where the color group is and change it over. It's white already, so that's right. And it's continuous already, which is right. And it's the line weight is 12. Now, if you're using your own computer, I'll show you how to set that up here in a minute. You might have to go back and change the line weights. Okay, so just pick a little thicker one. Let's see here. How many people? So if I'm gonna record this real quick. So if your line weights are set up to be if this is all showing up millimeters, you probably don't have your AutoCAD set up quite correct. So let's go ahead and fix all those items real quick. Okay. It doesn't take long. So mine are inches, but I'm going to show you how to do it. So you right click on your black part of your screen and you go down to the options button. You could also type that into the command line, be the same thing. Okay. All right, so that brings up our options user interface. There's a couple things down here. You can change the automatic save location if you want to. I'm not going to do that. I actually already did it, so it'll automatically save into the U drive here, and hopefully it works. You just redid AutoCAD, so it might not be working. But if you got your own laptop, you might want to change that so it saves to your documents instead of some crazy place that it goes to by default. Then you go to today though. Let's go to the display tab. Okay, and if you haven't already, make sure that crosshair size is slid all the way to the right. So that's how it's going to be at most places you work. So you kind of want to get used to that, and you can use it for having that crosshair full size. Helps you line everything up, so it's almost like having a construction line all the way across. Okay, so it's pretty handy. A lot of times, one of the things I do in here that isn't necessarily on the list is I go to this colors group right here where it says colors, and I change my mouse color over to light green because it shows up on the white borders a lot better. So right over here we see the crosshairs. So I pick the colors there, and now I'm going to pick crosshairs. Okay. And that's the only one I changed. Don't change any of those others. I mean, you can play with that if you want, but it gets low. You can mess up the blacks and stuff, so things don't show up very good if you're not careful. Pick crosshairs, drop that down, pick a light color like a cyan or a green, and it'll show up a lot nicer on the whiteboards. I don't know. I'm picking green today, and then hit apply and close after you pick that one. And now your crosshairs will be a light green, and it'll show up on white stuff real nice. I think that's the only thing we change in here on this one. Okay, all right, so after that one, go over to the open and save. And your automatic save, I think by default is already checked, okay, but that's important. You do want it to automatic save. But so if you ever see it automatically like saving every 10 minutes, that's what's going on there. All right, we're not changing anything into this, so. Plot stuff, you can set up your printer here if you want to. We're not going to do anything in there. Systems. Not changing anything in there. User preferences. This is where you change your millimeters over, okay? So pick the user preferences tab, where it says line weight settings here. Pick on that. Okay. And you can kind of guess right there, we're going to switch it over to inches instead of millimeters, okay? Very few people in this country use millimeter line weights, so switch it over to inches. You'll definitely want that to be that way. Okay, and then hit apply and close. Drafting. I don't think there's anything we changed in there either. 3D modeling, nothing. Trying to think, there was one in here. So if you've got your own computer, don't do this right now. But in the systems group, there is a graphics performance one you can kind of play with to make it go faster. But AutoCAD usually keeps up fine just anyway. But if you're having some problems, sometimes you can mess with that, just so you know. Okay, so go back to the selection tab, the second last one. Okay, so the pick box size is ridiculously small in AutoCAD. So move that over a couple notches so it's about like the size of mine, okay? I like the grip being a little bit bigger too, so definitely the pick box because it's so little you can't even pick anything with it. I think that's it. Hit apply and okay. And then I usually turn on the snap on the bottom. I don't know if you can see that. You can. Snap on the bottom, and also I usually turn on ortho as well. Okay. If you want your system to automatically go to absolute coordinates, which it does not by default anymore, it used to, but it doesn't anymore, you have to change that as well. So I'll show you that. It's a little tricky to do that one. So right where it has the snap cursor, okay, you pick the drop down and then pick Object Snap Settings. Okay, the bottom one, Object Snap Settings. Okay, and it brings up the Snap user interface. And then this one, you go over to Dynamic Input tab. Okay, so that means that what it's going to do automatically with the pop-ups and everything else. So Dynamic Input tab, and there's the top left settings where it says Enable Pointer Input, Pointer Input. Yeah, so that one. Hit the settings on there. And then right in here, make sure it says absolute coordinates. Okay, if you don't do that, whenever you want to type in absolute coordinates, you need to put a number symbol in front of it. Okay, off your keyboard, which I think is above the 3, Shift 3. So that's all, otherwise you can't get absolute coordinates to work. Okay, so it used to always be this way by default, but I think in 2020 they switched it around. Okay, so make sure that absolute coordinates the same. Then hit OK, and we're done. All right. Okay, so now go back up here and set up the rest of your layers. Okay, so the default should be switched to 12 thousandths of an inch. I think that's what it was, right? On the walls. Walls is 12 thousandths of an inch line weight. Hit OK, and go ahead and set up the rest of them. The layer, and you can abbreviate these if you want, like dimension, make it dim. Make sure you pick the right colors. Make that one red. Line type is continuous on most of them, and not all of them. Line weight's very important. It should be 5 thousandths. So when it has those colors, those are the 7 main colors I'm telling you to pick from, not all 50 million of them. I'll pause the video while I do the rest of them. All right, so the next thing it says here is set up all these dimension items here. So I'm going to close out that layer one, a little X. So set the units to architectural. We already did that with MV setup. With a 64th precision, I don't know. I'm not going to. I probably should take that out. That's a little bit over the top. So we're going to leave it whatever it is. I think it's a 16th, which is close enough. Okay. Snap. I'm not turning snaps on. I don't like snaps. So we're not going to do that either. I should take that one out too. All right. Line type scale 48. We didn't do that yet. So that means, so this paper now is 48 times 10 inches long. So it's bigger than heck. And a standard, like a hidden line and all other line types, they're done with, we'll learn to program them in this class, but they're about the dash is 1/8 of an inch long and the space is 1/8 and 1/8 of an inch dash and so on and so on. Well, if this thing's 40 feet long, you're not going to see those little bitty dashes. So you have to scale up the line types as well, and that's what this line type scale is. So you can actually type in line type scale, but the shortcut is LTS, or line type scale, and just hit enter. Okay, and make that 48. And that's a global change that will change them all. You can actually just change one at a time too, for like the specific ones you make, but most time you globally change it. Okay, make sure ortho is on. So we already did that. That's that little button at the bottom that looks like a right triangle or right angle. Okay, so ortho is on. Zoom all. That's just zooming in. I don't do that anymore. Just pan it. Pan it. So you pan with your middle mouse button right, and you zoom in with your middle mouse button. Those are the only things I ever use. Grid, we're not turning the grid on. Don't worry about that one either. Mirror text should be set to 0 already. I'll double check it, but I think it is. So if you're using your own laptop, it's probably a good idea. MIRR, just like it looks there, text. So this just means it's when you mirror the text, it's actually going to be readable instead of being mirrored, which you wouldn't be able to read, right? So it is set to 0. So I'm gonna leave that alone. Make sure yours is as well. Now we're going to set up a text style called architectural with simplex font. And the reason we use this simplex is because it's a real simple text. It doesn't look the best, but it doesn't take any memory, so it makes your borders really pop up fast. If you want a fancy border, though, like a lot of people want, and the computers are so fast now, a lot of times you might want to use a nicer one, but this will really make your work fast. And we're going to make the text a little skinnier, too, so we see it. And we use that for all of our text. So to do that, the shortcut for style is ST. Okay, or you can type in style too, right? And then we go over here and we're going to pick new. Okay, just pick the new button at the right and call it ARCH, arch. Okay, hit OK. And then on a text font, drop that where it's just a standard text font. The SEH stands for shapefile, which are actually programmable. So if you see SHX, somebody actually drew that in the Autocad programming group, or they programmed it to be that shape. Okay, so those are a lot more. You can explode those texts, do a lot more things with them in Autocad. If they have like a TT, that's a true type. So that's kind of a Windows one that was copied in. It's not as powerful in Autocad at least. All right, so we're going to drop that down. We want to get to simplex. So the quick way to do that, just type in SI, and it'll bring you right to it. And make sure you get the first one, just this first simplex SHX one. So I picked that, and I said the only thing we're going to change on it is the width factor. So the bottom right here, change the width factor to 0.9. Okay. And it's probably going to be the current anyway because it's picked, but hit the set current button. That way we know we're using it. Okay. Do you want to save changes? Yep. Okay. Then just close that out. All right, so now everything we type in is going to be with that font, and 90% as wide as normal. All right, so let's go to the next one. All right, we're going to set up all these crazy things in our dimension style. Okay, and this will be our default dimension style we always use in this class. So the shortcut for dimension style is just D. So hit D and enter. And we're going to hit modify just to change them all instead of making a new one. And we'll just go through these one at a time. So arrowhead size will, of course, be in symbols and arrows. And size down here, it says it's 3/16. So switch it over to half that big, 3/32. Okay. Okay, so now the arrows are not so big. All right. Text size is also 3/32, so go over to text size, the text size group here. Okay, and switch it over to, instead of 3/16 there, it's going to be 3/32. Hit enter when you're done to make it happen. Okay, architectural set and dimension text. Okay, so now we're in the text. We're in the text tab here. Okay, and it says text style there, and it's still on standard. So we need to drop that down and pick up the one we just created, the ARCH arch. Okay, so now we're in the architectural style. And text aligned with dimension line. So right down here at the right, the middle one says aligned with dimension line. Pick that. Text placement above dimension line. So there's text placement. And where it says centered there on the very first one on the vertical, just pick above, and I think of both. The other one we want to stay centered. Okay, so the vertical text switch it to above. Dimension scale set to 48. Another one. Architectural. Okay, so now we go over to the fit tab. Okay, make sure you're on a fit tab, and where it says scale here, change it from 1 over to 48. So it's going to make all the text and the arrows and all the spaces and everything else 48 times bigger. Okay, I think that's the only one we do there. Anything else in here? Yep, I guess that's the only one. There's zero not expressed. That's probably in the next one. Okay, so go to primary units here, the primary units tab, where it says decimal there on the unit format. Switch it over to architectural because we're going to be drawing houses and buildings and stuff. So architecture. Okay. And this is where we do the zero suppression, and zero suppression is broke half the time. So make sure it says 0 feet, 0 inches are both suppressed. Okay. It doesn't work half time anyway, though. Zeros still show up. Got to manually do it. I don't usually make people do that. There's one more thing that looks like it might not be in here. Well, there's 3 places where the sizes were wrong here. Symbols and arrows. There's that one. Text. Lines. Okay, so make center marks doesn't really matter. The offset. So if you go over to text, make sure the offset is also 3/32 or something like that. Okay, not 3/16. It probably automatically updated, but just in case it didn't. All right, so it doesn't say that in here, but we need to fix the leader too, and I really should show that in here. But so you got to set the leaders to be correct too. Okay, whenever you're setting up dimension style, it does kind of say that leader style, the bold items. Okay, those need to be set in the leader style. We'll hit OK and close. All right, now leader style, I'll show you where it's at, but most people don't remember that. But so if you go to you don't necessarily need to do this one. If you go to the annotate group, the little arrows, that's dimension style, and then under leaders, that little arrow would be leader style. But just type it in, it's the best way. It's hard to remember all those things, leader style. And the more you type, it finally shows up. And it's actually called M leader style for multi-line or multi-leader. All right, so now we need to modify this and change the ones that are in bold here. They're a little harder to find here. So the arrowhead size says 3/16. Switch that over 3/32 as well. Otherwise, you have great big leaders. Okay, and okay, in the dimension style where it says general arrowhead, no text yet. Break is at 8. That's fine. Content. Where it says content there, a little bit for the content tab, go about third of the way down, you'll see the text style. Switch that over to ARC. Okay. And the text height, make sure you switch that to 3/32 as well. Okay, but I think that's it. Oh, we got to do the scale. Okay. This leader thing always looks like it's just thrown together. It's hard to figure out where everything's at. So you go, after you set the text height, go back to the leader structure tab, and that's where the scale's at. Switch it from 1 to 48. Okay. All right, now all our leaders are set up and all of our dimensions are set. Just hit OK there. So when we draw everything, you should be able to see it. If you ever dimension something and you can't see any text on it or can't see the words on it, well, that's because you forgot to scale it up, right? They're there if you zoom in real far, but. Okay, we already drew the border using MV setup, so that's done. We already set the limits, so that's done. We used MV setup. So now we got to make this thing. Okay. So, block containing your name scale. All text must be centered on the box. Okay, it doesn't really give you a whole lot of instructions on this. It doesn't really say you have to use a blocking in here either, so I'm probably not going to make you do that. See it in there anyway. No, we're not going to get too worried about that. We're just going to put text in it then. All right, so this thing, it says the border's that big. The text should be 6-inch letters. So this title block should be 12 feet by 3 feet. All right, so we're going to make a rectangle 12 feet by 3 feet. And where does it want us to put it? Probably in the right somewhere. Yeah, we'll put it on the right side. I think that's where we typically put it. All right, so let's draw a rectangle that's 12 foot wide and 3 feet tall. So go back to Home tab if you haven't been there. And then in the Draw group, pick Rectangle. Okay. And then pick on the bottom right corner of your border there. And just type in at -12. And you got to put the foot mark behind it. Okay. So the apostrophe there, comma, and then 3 feet tall. So make sure it's a -12 and 3 feet. Okay. If you type inches, you don't have to type that, but with feet you do. Okay. Hit enter, and it should look like that. Okay, so they were 3 feet tall, so we need to basically make 3 lines going down and draw, I guess, one right in the middle. Okay, so hit X is the shortcut for explode. Just hit X and hit enter, and pick your rectangle you just made and explode it into lines by hitting enter. Okay, but now we're going to offset that top line down 1 foot twice. Okay, so the shortcut for offset is just O, so just type O, enter. And then type 1, and make sure you put foot behind it, or you can type in 12. Hit enter. Now you pick the object, pick the side you want it on, pick the object you just made, and pick side you want it on. So now we've got 2 of them. Okay. So now we're going to draw this line in the middle here. You could have make sure your snaps are on. If you hit the little drop down arrow by the snaps, you should see all the different ones. These are the default ones that I almost always have picked. And I use running old snaps, which is shift right click to pick the other ones. Okay, so you got endpoint, midpoint, center, intersection, extension, and perpendicular. Okay, those are the kind of standard ones. If you need a special one like quadrant, you just hold down the shift key and right click, and then pick quadrant. What that would do is turn off all the other ones and give you only that one, so it makes it a lot easier to pick. Okay, same thing with tangent, some of these other ones, but those I usually have set. Midpoint's the one we're going to use right now. So let's make sure those are all set. All right, and then just go up here and pick line, and pick in the middle of either one of these places and go straight down and hit the other one. Okay, now we got a middle one. Okay. So our text, these texts are all 6 inches tall, and they're and there's a foot between these lines. So we know they're all 3 inches off there, all right? So I'm going to show you how to basically set all that up. Make sure I do it right in my head here first. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to change the basically where the text lands, which we're going to put it in the middle, okay? And then we'll draw a diagonal across these so that we can put it in the middle, and it'll lock every one of these down right smack in the middle there, and it'll keep it nice and simple for us. Okay, so let's draw a bunch of diagonal lines corner to corner in all 4 of these boxes. And then we'll delete those lines in a little bit. Those are just construction lines. So go up there and pick line, and in each one of those 6 boxes, or 4 boxes, how many boxes are there? 4. Draw a diagonal, and it don't matter which corner you start and stop as long as you got a diagonal across that. We're going to use the middle of that line to put our text in. So I'm just hitting enter to finish the line and enter to restart the line. That's how I'm doing that so fast. Okay, I pick my point, draw it down there, pick another point, hit enter to finish the line, enter to restart it. So I've got my 4 lines across there now. Now we're going to put text in there, and we're almost done with this thing. Okay, so to put text in, the shortcut for single line text, which is what we want, is DT. You can also go up here to the annotate and pick text, but don't pick the first one because that's multi-line text. We're not writing a paragraph, we're writing single line. So make sure we pick a single line if you want to pick it. DT is the shortcut for that. Okay. Okay, now we got to change it. We can't just start typing. So we got to change the justification of it to middle center. So at the bottom there, where it's on your command line where it says justify, pick that. Okay. And then find the one that says middle center, which is MC, okay? And the default is, I think just left is the default. We'll go back to that in a minute here. So middle center, MC. Okay, now let's just do the top, work our way from top down. So pick the middle one, just pick up there in the top. It says what's the height? Okay, change that to 6. And inches is default, so you don't have to type the inch mark. Okay, so type to 6, and that's right from the instructions. What's the rotation? It's 0, so just hit enter. And then type in Lakeland College. And there are 2 words, right? and enter twice to finish it. Okay, now just hit enter to repeat the command, and it remembers the justification, so you don't need to change it. So I'll pick the next line down, and this one's going to have the drawing by, and it remembers everything you did, so just hit enter by all those, and then type in DRN period space BY semi or colon, I mean space, and then put your name in there. Enter twice. Enter again to restart it up. Same thing, pick the next diagonal line, hit enter to take the items from before, and type in scale. And that one really ought to have a semicolon on it. I did it before like that. So scale, I mean a colon again, colon. And the scale of this drawing is 1/1/4 inch equals 1 foot. Okay, which is the same thing as 1/48, because there's 4 quarters in an inch times 12 would be 48, right? Enter twice to finish it. So this centers them all up perfect. Height-wise, they're 3 inches above and below the lines, and they're centered left or right. That's kind of why we're doing it like this. Enter repeat. And pick your middle spot. Enter for the, and put the today's date in there, which, what is today? 10/18, I think. 21. Enter twice. Now you want to delete all those construction lines. Get them out of there. Okay, I'm going to save this right now just to make sure I don't lose it after all this work, so file save. That's pretty easy. Just type in at the command line, type in page setup. There it is, all one word, but pick it when it pops up. Okay, and we want to pick a new. We're going to make a new one, and we're going to call it ARCH-A4. So this is a plot setting or a page setup. Okay, and hit OK. That's the name of it. Okay, but now it brings up this. Now this is where you would actually tell it to go whatever printers you're going to go to. In here, the only thing we'll ever do is PDFs probably. So if you want to leave it on the Microsoft PDF, that's fine. If you got it on your home machine or whatever, you'd change it right there, okay? But we're not going to. And we're going to change it to where it says display here on what to plot in the plot area. We're going to switch that over to limits. So it'll always go to that size, okay? I don't know what else does it say here to change. Plot area limit, fit paper to the center of the plot. Okay, so that's already done. Fit paper. Set the plot file table to monochrome. Okay, so it's going to be monochrome. So that is up here, I think, plot style. So it's always going to be black and white, basically. So drop that down and find monochrome, CTB. Okay, so it'll always trying to basically give you black or white, nothing else. No grayscales. Sign you up. All right, I think that's it on that one. Let's see, is there anything else? Instead of being fit to paper, a lot of times you might put that to scale if you're really doing it different. But if you want it to be exactly to scale, so that would be a lot of times that would be 1/48 here. All right, I think that's it. So hit OK there, and close. And save it one last time, and that is what you'll upload. Okay, and then next class we'll get started on drawing that salt barn there on 2C. Anything else you didn't get done on lab 1 or 2, finish them up and upload these. And you can upload multiple times to the lab, so you can upload today and then tomorrow and then the next day, and I'll still see all those files.